The time is 7 o'clock. I hereby call this meeting of the Ridgewood Board of Education to order. Mr. Bicek, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Brogan? Absent. Mr. Donning? Here. Mrs. Quack?
Here.
Mr. Kaufman?
Here.
Mr. Lembo?
Here. Can we all please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, advance notice of this evening's meeting has been given to the Ridgewood News, the Bergen Record, and the clerk of the Village of Ridgewood. In addition, notices have been posted in the office of the board secretary and all of our school buildings. I think we are going to start with some really excellent presentations, right, Dr. Gorman?
Yeah. Let's see. We might as well. We'll start with the students first. All right. We're going to just reverse that real quick.
I think so.
Since
That's
they're
fine.
all ready to go. So,
Yes, they're well
Dr. Oates,
prepped.
where are you? I just lost you. You want to come up here and maybe introduce everybody and tell us what's going on with you have some virtual, some live. Just talk into the microphone though, please.
She's setting me all up here.
There you go.
The first person I'd like to introduce is Miss Kate Finnegan, who is our new guidance counselor at Somerville School. Miss Finnegan, come on up and join us. She has worked really hard developing a new club at our school, and the name of the club is the Leopard Leaders. And the purpose of the club is to not only foster a love of leadership in our students, but give them authentic opportunities to practice those leadership skills in and around the school, outside of the school, so they really hone their leadership muscles. They're practicing their communication skills, their empathy, and just their ability to move through the school day with eyes wide open, seeing how they can contribute to the Team Somerville culture. So today we have 2 students presenting live and in person, and we have 2 students who are joining us from home. So we'll start off with Ms. Arushi Patel.
Hi, my name is Arushi. If I had to pick a word of the year for 2021 at Somerville, it would be superhero. Teachers dressed up in capes for Halloween, and Dr. Oates dressed up as Superwoman. It was so funny. There are signs all over Somerville about superpowers. Superhero is our theme for this year to remind us that even though it's been a tough year, we all have superpowers within us. I think my superpower is being hardworking and helping other people.
Hi, my name is Troy. In my opinion, the top lesson of this year has been in science. We've experimented to see what is magnetic. We've conducted electricity with erasers, which didn't work, and with a metal cup, which did work. Another favorite was when we put sugar in a tinfoil boat and held it over a fire. We saw that the sugar turned brown, bubbled, and eventually became like glass. It was awesome.
Hi, my name is Henry. I'm recording this at home while quarantined due to contact tracing. Unfortunately, quarantine is part of our year in review. But the best part is wearing pajamas while doing school. You don't even have to work to earn a pajama day. I would say the lesson of the year is about the book Esperanza Rising. My classmates and I had good discussions and came up with interesting theories about what happened to Esperanza's parents.
Hi, my name is Olivia. I also recorded this at home because of quarantining. One of the top events of the year at Somerville has been the Jugglers Assembly. They taught us that teamwork is so important. And another one is where we got to eat outside. It's fun because you get fresh air and you get to sit with your friends. Happy holidays from Somerville.
So we thought we would structure our share as a year in review, as this is a time of year that you often see that in TV shows and magazines. And I hope you enjoyed hearing some of the highlights of the year that were academic and just experiential, the assemblies we've had, and just really making lemons out of lemonade. I'm sorry, lemonade out of lemons. That would be magical throughout this school year. So great job presenting. Let's give them all one more round of applause.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight and sharing everything that's going on. It's such a great school and a wonderful experience. And I love that you shared your superpowers with us. So, I thought you were going to say fly, but but that's excellent. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here and being in person. Have a great night, guys.
Great work.
All right, we're going to keep on the positivity. We're going to bring up Dr. Kashmanian. Why don't you come on up and introduce our first retiree?
Oh,
Is that on?
well.
Yeah. Yep.
Boy, if you can't hear me, there's a problem.
You know what? Do you two want to sit at the front table? Why don't we do that so everybody can see who
Okay,
you're talking
sure.
about?
I-
We're
I'm-
gonna put her front and center. Ms. Blinn, just grab a seat right there with her, and there you go. Yeah,
Okay,
there you go. Thank you.
so be nice, she said. This is Susan Blinn. And I've known Susan since I first came to GW, which I think was maybe around 19 years ago. She started her career as a classroom aide at BF in 1994, then became a supplemental instructor there in 1996, and she made her move over to the West Side in 1997 as a basic skills and supplemental teacher. Later in 2000, she became an ed specialist. She switched to being a resource special education teacher in 2009, and altogether, she's been working with our students at GW for the past 25 years and for a total of, I think, 27 years, 28 years at the end of this year in the district. So that's a wow right there. Susan is kind, caring, and patient. She's also a fashionista. That's how she's known, and you can tell. She has taught countless students with compassion and understanding and has always believed in them as if they were her own. She raised her family in Ridgewood, as so many educators here do. And she honors her son Timothy each year with a scholarship at Ridgewood High School. Clearly, the Ridgewood Public Schools have meant much more than just a job to Susan and her family. When the educators teaching our young people, like Mrs. Blinn, truly have a stake in the learning community, amazing things happen. In fact, this year, Mrs. Blinn got to witness one of her former GW students, who she was very inspirational to. In fact, this student used to say to me when she was in middle school, someday I'm going to come back here and be a special education teacher. Well, she witnessed her former student come back to GW as a special education teacher. Talk about full circle. What a rewarding way to pass the torch to the next cohort of educators who also have a deep connection to the community. Bravo. Susan, you will be truly missed at GW. And I should note that her husband, Jimmy, back there has also substituted at our school. So know that you're both always welcome. And if you're bored, you can come volunteer to help out Ann Brown in the library, as so many of your former colleagues do. And we'll always need substitutes. And Jimmy, that goes double for you because you're ready right now. You can come anytime. So remember, this isn't goodbye, it's farewell. And we couldn't appreciate you more. Thank you for everything you've done for our children.
Thank you for sharing that. And we are going to miss
Yeah.
you. You put so many years in over there. I hear you. Congratulations.
I should say she already retired once, but then she came back, so.
That's excellent. Mr. Orsini, we're going to ask you to come on up, and we'll start with Ms. Clark Anderson.
I was kind of hoping I could get flanked by both Kathleen and Aaron, but that's okay. I'll start. No, I'm kidding. No, it's my honor to be able to honor Kathleen. She's one of the first people I got to meet at BF 17 years ago, and she's been in the Ridgewood Public School District for over 32 years. I was going back and reading some of her old evaluations when she first started. Travis Jackson, who God rest his soul, passed away this year, was an assistant principal at, and in one of Kate's first observations or summatives, he was talking about the district goals that we have now that she embodied 32 years ago, about how what she cared about was the social emotional well-being of the students, how she was able to connect the learning, not just to the books that the kids were reading, but the worlds that they were living in. And she's continued that tradition for the last 32 years. We're going to miss her tremendously. We're losing the New Jersey, the governor's, the sitting for this year. I want to get the name of it exactly right. The governor's educator of the year in the arts, honoree from last year. But we're not losing her to education. Kate's moving on, and she's finished her administrative work, and she's going to actually be at the campus director for the Eastern International College, which is super impressive. So we're so happy for her to be continuing to be able to shape the lives of young people. She's been an integral part, not just of BF, but of the Ridgewood Public Schools for over 30 years, touching the lives of not only the BF students in Ridge 7 for several years, throughout the entire school for the rest of her career, and also our young adults on the debate team for the entire time, right? 32 years. So Kate should not only be proud of herself for everything that she's accomplished, but we're going to miss her tremendously, not only as a master teacher, but as a friend. And we wish Kate and Vince and Delaney and Abby all the best going forward. We're going to miss you tremendously. We love you.
Thank you so much. It was
Just
truly
into the mic if you want to, just speak into the mic if you want to talk.
Thank you very much. This has been truly a pleasure and honor for spending my time. I will miss the and our incredible leadership there. And all of my friends and colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do know we're not losing you. You're coming back to volunteer and help with the speech and debate to keep that going this year. So we're excited about that. So excellent.
Another championship in speech and debate.
And then we have Ms. Corcoran's out there. We've already
I've
accepted.
been waiting for this.
Ah,
Sit next to this guy.
We've actually accepted your resignation a while back, but then tonight's the first night we had a chance to recognize you. So, Mr. Orsini.
Again, we're losing not only a master teacher, but a friend in Erin. Erin has not only been a tremendous leader in grooming our 8th grade language arts students to guarantee their success at the high school. If any of your students have had Erin as an 8th grade teacher, they've learned a lot more than language arts from her. They've learned how to be mindful. They've learned how to care about others. They've learned empathy, and they've learned how to take care of themselves so they can be their best selves. She helps students flourish and thrive, and she's been doing that for her entire career. She's been here for 21 years. We stole her from Oradell. As a matter of fact, we stole Kate from Riverdale too. So they still don't talk to us over there on that side of 17. Erin's been a leader not only in the classroom with her students, but as a professional developer as well, especially at school. I have had the pleasure of doing some PD with her and really watching her, the way that she's able to help adults grow, as educators, help me grow and help others in the school grow. And it's been something that she's been able to do. If you want to catch her, the Mindful Educators podcast, it's definitely a great listen. Erin is going to be moving on to continue to work with adult populations. Hopefully we'll be able to get her back here at some point, which would be great. But what we're going to miss most is her presence in her community. And she's an embodiment of not just great teaching, but how when we focus on, and Kate is too, both of them, when we focus on the social emotional learning of students, they actually perform better. So if you've seen the performance in language arts of any of our students who've had Erin, you will see how great of readers, writers, thinkers they are. And it's not just due to her expertise as an English teacher, it is more to do with her expertise of making sure that the kids are mindful, that the kids are focused, and that we're caring about their well-being first. She always says to make sure you put on your oxygen mask first, and then help your students. So thank you, Erin, for everything you've done through the years. We're going to miss you tremendously, and we wish you well.
I'm not shy about
No,
speaking in front of
no.
it, but I
You
just
and
want to say
Kate
that
are never shy.
only because I know I presented in front of you, was it a couple of years back, on what was going on in my classroom. But Ridgewood is a very special place, and it has been a very special place to me in my life. And as Tony said, I left a district where I had tenure and was doing very well just to jump for a new opportunity in a middle school setting. And the one thing that I want to just impart on all of you is that we're all listening, we're all watching, kids and teachers alike. And as much as we are embracing this idea of caring for our kids, which is really important and crucial, I'm just going to encourage you to be mindful to take care of your teachers, because it is a hard profession right now and everybody is feeling it. And I think they go hand in hand, kids and teachers and staff and administration. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ms. Train?
Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with events. A ninth grade parent meeting will be held later this week to welcome parents into the high school, introduce them to the programs at the high school like Amstead and Elisa, and check in on them and see how they're doing with their kids just entering. Seniors have started getting their decisions back from early decision and early admission schools. I'm still waiting on mine. Hopefully it comes soon. I think the date is the 15th, for me at least. The girls soccer team had an alumni game on the 26th. Mostly freshmen in college showed up to play against the soccer team, which placed 6th in the state. And there were also 2 former players from the classes of 84 and 87 that attended. Student athletes and coaches earned their 3rd consecutive NJSIAA Sportsmanship Award for 2020 to 2021. As a group, RHS made it through all 3 seasons last year without a single disqualification or ejection. Girls and boys basketball has started for the winter season, and both groups have been practicing hard. All of the girls' teams are working on team bonding and conditioning to prepare for their upcoming scrimmages this week. The girls' varsity team has their first game on July 4th. Wrestling practices have picked up, and the team's preparing for a match on the 17th against Morristown. They are working on getting better every day. The JV and varsity ice hockey teams have been competing regularly against Ramapo, Livingston, Indian Hills, and West Milford. This Saturday, the varsity team competed against Livingston at the Ice House and unfortunately lost by 2 points, but are working on improving their skills for the next game. Swimming has been heating up as the team is practicing for upcoming competitions. They've been doing laps in the pool and lifting on off days, which is great for team bonding. On Thursday last week, the team dominated against Pascack Valley at Bethany Community Center. Girls varsity cross country had an XC national championship in Huntsville, Alabama on the 2nd to the 4th. They placed 27th in the girls gold group, which is pretty impressive. DECA was participating in a QMAC clothing drive and food drive from the 29th of November to the 4th of December. They collected lots of food and were impressed by RHS's support for the shelter and the large amount of food and clothes that they got in time for the holiday season. The mock trial team has been preparing for the virtual competition in January. Right now, the team is working on fact-finding, giving people parts in the case, and finding the best course of questioning. In case you need a refresher, last year the team went all the way to the semifinals. The Oasis Club is hosting a winter holiday drive for women and children of the nonprofit organization Oasis in Patterson, New Jersey. They are collecting no longer used winter clothes, food, and children's toys to help brighten up a child's holiday spirit. The Unified Sports Club had an event during Thanksgiving weekend to spread the message about the importance of inclusion to all students at RHS. On the stadium field, students played games, completed puzzles, and of course, made new friends. Over the last couple of weeks, the Vegan Club raised over $200 for the Ramapo Bergen Animal Refuge. They hosted a movie night where students watched Ratatouille and sold vegan treats at a bake sale by the entrance of RHS. New players are putting the final touches on their latest production, It's a Wonderful Life. The show is premiering on the 9th at 7, and the performers cannot wait to show what they've been working on. Sharing the Arts also on a musical version of Shrek just in time to celebrate Christmas. I mean, not Christmas, the holidays, sorry. Before the show, the club had a pizza party and everyone had lots of fun putting on what they had been working on for the last couple of months. The physics, engineering, and art class went on a field trip to New York City 2 weeks ago. The students viewed the Vessel, Shed, and Little Island, which are some of the most structurally interesting buildings in New York. Through the explorations, the class was fascinated by the constantly changing trends in architecture. That's all I have.
Very thorough. Thank you.
Yes.
It's just great to see that we're in the second quarter, the second season in school and everything, and things are going and progressing nicely. So thank you for all that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what goes on this quarter because I think there's another field trip coming up for one of the other classes. It'll be in my next report.
Excellent. Excellent.
Great.
And don't worry, you're gonna get into college, so
Yeah.
it's coming. Don't worry.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it. You don't know.
You'll be just fine. All right, we're gonna have the first public comments portion of the evening. If you come on up, you can sign your name on the roster for our minutes. You can do it after you speak if you wish. Just if I please remind everybody in the audience and at home, please just adhere to our 4 minutes. If the time, you'll see a timer up here. When it kind of counts down at 4 minutes, I'm just ask you to make sure you wrap things up. Okay, thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here today to plead with the school board to rethink our approach to specialized education at our district. My wish is for our school to practice inclusion at all levels of education. Children learn best with their peers. This has been a fact long before IDEA laws recognizing the civil rights of disabled students in America were created, long before the many studies were conducted stating that this is a fact. But far too often in our district, segregation to a contained classroom is the only option presented to child study teams to families in our district. You need only look at my family's journey navigating the system of special education at Ridgewood. The data collected by the child study team supported learning in group setting with modifications to support my child. The district came back with recommendation of LLD classroom while our test scores were average and above average when compared with our peers. Our tour of the classroom revealed that this classroom is indeed contained with children of mixed ages, kindergarten through 2nd grade, but a completely inappropriate setting for my child. When we invoked our civil rights to be placed in the least restricted environment, placement in a mainstream classroom, the answer simply was no. We were given a huge purple pamphlet familiar to all families with special needs called the prize pamphlet, parental rights in special education, and told to continue with the process of mediation. In other words, the district then became our adversary. The mediation involved an enormous expense on our part and needing an advocate to attend this meeting with us. We arrived and the advocate stated exactly what I did in previous meetings. I've educated myself on the special education system and on the rights of my child, and I tried to invoke them as an individual, but it didn't work. Then with mediation and with a representative from Newark present, we were given a placement in a mainstream setting. It's been bumpy. There have been some obstacles, but I'm very happy to report that she's thriving in her current setting. And this is why I'm standing before you here today, because I shudder to think what would have happened if I didn't take the steps that I did. We practice some level of inclusion in the middle and the high school with collaboratively taught classrooms there. But what about the elementary kids? There is no need for a degree in education to know that by placing a child in a bubble for 6 years of their elementary schooling and then putting them out into the middle school setting with their typically aged peers, they're essentially being set up for failure. Human interaction is an education that should not only be reserved for the able and neurotypical population. My child has thrived in the mainstream setting. She's made a home at Somerville. I thank the Somerville community and the team for eventually loving and understanding her and for her success. Inclusion is not just a movement. It is the civil rights of our most vulnerable students. Please include them in your diversity and inclusion momentum. We differ in race and in orientation, but we also differ in abilities as well. We end up coexisting together, whether or not we choose to do so in life. So why don't we teach coexistence with inclusion at our schools? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else going to speak in the audience? Perfect. Welcome.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Julian Chilishvili. I applaud the administration in taking time and effort in investing the alternative start of the day presentation last week. It's really refreshing to hear when people who we entrust our children with and a school system that prides itself on the tradition of excellence states that changes are considered in the name of noble causes such as physical and mental health of our children. Block scheduling, one of the options presented last week, is really an innovative way to support the development of critical thinking skills and help students sustain their knowledge. The School Superintendent Association is clear on the benefits of block scheduling, if it's done correctly. The key to successful implementation of block scheduling is sustained staff development. Most teachers in block schedule schools plan lessons that include at least 3 different approaches or activities. For example, as it was presented last week, during one block, a teacher might provide a short lecture to explain a new concept, an activity that asks students to apply that concept, and several questions that review material and ask students to synthesize the explanation and application. Considering that our schools have been already utilizing 80 minutes lessons for a few years, our teaching staff has to demonstrate a remarkable ability to sustain effective and efficient teaching practices, especially with the staff development and the consultants that our district employs for these purposes. Then why do our students in advanced and honor classes in high school are asked to spend 30 minutes doing homework out of those 80-minute sessions? Why do the 80-minute classes not employ the techniques where teachers can check for students' understanding in real time and provide actionable feedback during that lesson and not rely on the test only? What staff development was provided to teachers to build in their tasks the purpose of informing and potentially transforming instruction in the real time? What was done in terms of staff development to avoid the scenario where parents state that despite discrepancies in grades between homework and tests, no teacher has ever reached out to them or spoke to their child? That means either teachers do not care, which I do not believe, or homework grades are artificially inflated, or tests are completely out of balance with material. What staff development has been provided to math teachers in both middle and high school? Because it is very well-known fact that if parents in Ridgewood employ the tutor most likely will be in math. During last month's Board of Education meeting, one of the members asked how he can be sure that consultants hired for staff development actually provide the results that the taxpayers expect and how to evaluate the effectiveness of their services. Mr. Donnie, asked to review the observation reports from the subject supervisors and how many times the strategies discussed and modeled during the staff development days by the consultants are actually visible in the teacher's classroom. By the way, as per most recently available observation report, all Ridgewood teachers are rated effective or highly effective, which really brings me comfort that I trust my child's education with such a talented group of individuals. I still wonder if all of our students have at least B average in every subject, since there must be a direct correlation between teachers' output and students' achievement. I also wonder what has our superintendent based his statement on during last month's Board of Education meeting that 95% of parents trust the school system. Was there a survey on parental trust that we all missed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Susan Madison. I'm here for a couple of reasons. I listened to the presentation on the alternative starts schedule, and I do have a couple of concerns about that. You outlined 5 options for the high school. One was to remain the same. 2 were to shift the day. That was fairly self-explanatory. You explained the drawbacks to that. I think you were very glib in talking about the challenges in doing 90-minute block periods. As the last speaker just noted, we have 80-minute block periods that really are not fully utilized. So how's it going to work when we go to 90 minutes? You keep saying that this is just a discussion point, but Superintendent Gorman, you did say you needed to be on a fast time track because you needed to order buses by February. So what is it? Are we on a fast time track, or is this just the beginning of a long discussion about something so massive as changing the way we schedule our children's school? I also don't understand why the most obvious option is not up there if we want to do late start. Why are we not taking a few minutes away from every period, perhaps cutting lunch by 10 minutes and shifting the day? That is what Princeton has done. That is what Verona has done. I fear that the reason we are not doing that is because that would reduce the number of minutes that our teachers are teaching, and without a contract negotiation, they would get paid less. It really pains me to think that our district would put contract negotiations with the teachers above what is best for our children. And finally, I don't understand why we spend all this time on a very small issue when we still do not have regular conversations with families regarding the return to school and COVID policy. I was just notified that the Ridge 5th grade is going remote for 14 days. Where in the world does 14 days come from? I think you guys pull it out of the air. Anyways, it is time. You said you have a goal to look at late start. I believe you also have a goal to improve communication with the district. What are the measures? What are the metrics? When are you going to start to listen to people? You like to share articles, Mrs. Brogan. I sent an article about the issues around block scheduling, very serious issues. I think that that should be discussed. And I certainly think no survey should go out without people knowing exactly what these different options would entail. So I really hope that we will start to see some progress on the communication front, on the policy explanation front. What is our quarantine policy? Where is it written down? And as far as this survey goes, I look forward to seeing it. I do hope that you'll take the advice of the newest elected board member and include the option about reducing a few minutes of each class period so that we can perhaps accomplish late start without completely blowing up the rest of our children's day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, welcome.
Hello, Laura McKenna, 861 Bingham Road. Just a couple of minutes. I wanted to just bring together 2 topics that have come up in the meeting so far. One is special ed, one is the late start. What is the impact? How does this late start benefit the special ed kids in the community and their families? Was this parent from the special needs community included in the group that, brainstormed these various ideas? If we're going to indeed celebrate diversity, I think a committee of parents should reflect the whole diversity of parents in Ridgewood. 15% of students have special needs, so you need to at least have one parent representing that community on any board of parents. Seems fair. I am concerned about how changing the schedule will impact the special ed community. I know that scheduling is a huge issue and for special ed administrators. You're trying to, some kids might be in regular ed for math and special ed for English. Making a schedule and then you have to squeeze in speech therapy or physical therapy. Scheduling is a huge issue for special ed administrators. I think we really need their input in all of this and how it would affect, their kids and their work. So that's a factor. I just want to thank everybody for thinking through some, I think it's interesting to explore big, ideas, and hopefully we can find a solution that works and look at other possibilities that can help our kids too. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any callers? Oh, there we go. We got one. Hello, caller. Last three digits are 462.
Hi, this is Cameron Latimer, 53 Heights Road. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just watched the presentation, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to put my thoughts together, but thank you so much, everyone who spent all the time for that, the effort, the time, the research that went into getting it done. I'm really grateful for it. I want to thank the people who are in Smart Balance, and I know a lot of the people who are doing it their families won't even be affected by this. Their kids are graduated or graduating soon. It's great to see that we're not just talking about mental health for our kids, but we're actually doing something about it. And I'm really grateful. So anything that can improve the mental health of our kids and our community is obviously worthwhile. Just a little bit about me. I'm a physician. I'm also a health and wellness coach. I'm working on a community wellness initiative at the Ridgewood Y, where I'm a board member. I have 5 kids. 2 have graduated, 1 at the high school, 2 in the middle school. And I know both professionally and just as a mom, we are at a pivotal moment in our culture with the AAP declaring a state of emergency because of the declining mental health of our kids and our adolescents. And I do know change is hard. I accept that. I know it takes passion and conviction, and I see it all in so many of you. And I know there are obstacles to overcome, but I do want to say I really believe it is worth it. So whatever I'm saying here, I really am saying it with gratitude and hope that we are a community. We can look at the data, we can look at the problem and the research, and we can really start to implement smart strategies to improve the overall health and well-being of the kids. And I think we've got to just start making decisions that will positively affect mental health farther upstream. I know we have to spend a lot of resources on kids in crisis, and of course we should. They're a priority, absolutely. But I love the conversations here because what we're doing is looking at more of prevention and less of, putting Band-Aids on the problem. But these instructional minutes, and again, I don't know enough about it, so I apologize, but these instructional minutes really do seem to be a hurdle. It's the second time, recently that I've seen it stands in the way of something that could affect overall wellness. I'm helping my daughter with a new wellness club at the high school, and their whole goal is just to elevate the mood and the culture of the entire school. Their initial ask of the administration was to have a wellness fundraiser for Vicky Hoy, who I'm sure so many of you know. She graduated just this year. She just left our community and she's battling stage 4 bone cancer. And they want to have a fundraiser for her, incorporating their wellness efforts. And it involved giving teachers the options to take 10 minutes out of a class, only one time. just to do a short wellness activity like meditation or listening to music or watching something funny. Again, 10 minutes one time, one class, not on an ongoing thing. They were super excited about it. I thought it was a really good idea. It really promoted their mission, but they were told that they just absolutely couldn't take time out of instructional minutes, which was really disappointing. And I'm not sure how really that was different than the a cappella groups interrupting class on Valentine's Day, which I love, but regardless, they were refused in the name of these instructional minutes. And now I see our rigidity about these minutes possibly standing in the way of the earliest start time, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a scientist by nature, and I support the research. And Stacy at the presentation just now, she made the 90 minutes classes sound good, great even. But I think the reality is that not every subject lends itself to that kind of collaboration and different type of learning. And truly, not every teacher is dedicated or experienced enough or skilled enough to make these 90 minutes fly by. Like in a perfect world, yeah, I imagine for sure that Stacy was that kind of creative, captivating teacher, but this kind of creative, attention planning, lesson planning doesn't really seem to be happening for the 80-minute periods now, as I know other people are saying. And I just can't imagine across the board, every teacher in every subject will be able to make the 90 minutes meaningful. And I guess my concern is that the earlier start time will be denied by the community because of it, because of the fear of these 90 minutes, which I want to validate. I don't know that that would be great for the kids, although it might be worth it. And I just wonder if our focus on the instructional time, we're doing it in such a quantitative way, is failing to take into account all the qualitative
Time is
benefits.
up. If you can just wrap it up, please.
Yep. I'm just saying, are just more minutes, just more? And is there a way that, I just know there's so many smart, creative people who are on board here. Is there just a way that we can not let these instructional minutes stand in the way of real progress that can affect real change and really affect our kids' mental health? But I also just want to say thanks to everyone who's working so hard on it. So thank you.
Thank you. So with that, there's no more hands raised or audience members that want to speak. So we'll close the first comments from the public portion of the evening. Dr. Gorman, the floor is yours.
Just before I start my report, I just want to address the one issue about the COVID. Our COVID policy is on the website. It has been for the past 2 years. We do follow the CDC and the NJDOH guidelines. So we make nothing up. It's all there. It's in black and white. And in fact, in the last letter we put out to the Ridge parents, we actually gave them the hyperlink explaining where this guidance is coming from. So it's all out there, and any parent can look it up at any time. Regarding COVID testing, we've seen an increase with the number of students testing, and that's been very positive. We've seen a number of kids 5 to 11, but also some of the older kids still get their vaccine shots, and that's very, very encouraging. Just want to remind everybody that if you get your second COVID shot, you're still not immune from being quarantined until 14 days after your second shot. That's when it's considered fully in your system, and then the time you don't have to quarantine goes into effect. So just please remember that. Regarding the alternative schedule task force, we presented that last week. That we had a number of people in the audience, another 130 plus people watching it streamed, as well as people watching it on TV. The purpose was to educate the community, and we're looking for feedback. And it's all based around the circadian rhythms of adolescence. So middle school and high school students, the time that they naturally wake up is a little bit later in the day than, say, older adults or young children. And so this national trend of moving to try to align when kids naturally wake up with the time of the school day is this movement that's going on. It does present some challenges, what goes on at the end of the day, and that's what we're looking into. So we're going to be getting feedback from the community about that, and then we're going to try and move forward and make some decisions. The exact times, so what we put on this, what we presented the other day, we're going to put on the survey, is the whole thing is about how the day can shift, because we need feedback from the community about, is this, can this work in your schedule? Can this work with your daycare issues? Can this work with the things we have to do in the town? And if the answer is yes, then we can move ahead and we can come up with the exact times of what the school day will look like. So we'll be putting the survey out this week. We'll be getting that'll be open for 2 weeks. We'll be getting the results over the break, the holiday break, and then we should be able to really dive into the data in January and then see what the community is saying, and then we'll share that information out shortly thereafter. We did have a task force that's made up of a large number of people. In fact, we solicited people that wanted to be on that, and then we went down by different roles and different ways they were involved in the community as well as in schools. And we came up with teachers, Board of Ed trustees, administrators, and parents all on that board. And I think the board this task force is almost about 50 people big. So we do have a large body of people that are giving us input, and they'll be meeting again in January. And that's all I have for right now.
Excellent. I just had a couple of questions with the survey.
Sure.
So that you said that's going to go out this week.
Yes.
Is that going to go? So that's going out to, I think it was grade 6, the students 6 through 12, and then teachers, parents, and also the community.
Correct.
Okay.
Students and teachers are going to be given the survey next week.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that we have the things in place, especially to orient the students. And so they're given some kind of a presentation or synopsis of what the options are and what, so we're going to do the students. We spoke to the middle school and high school principals today. High school, we're shooting for the 13th and 14th, and then middle school's on the 14th for the students.
Is the survey going to be different? I mean, gauged towards like a student perspective, or is
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there'll be
It's not
different
like-
questions for the community members. A lot of them will not have say because they don't have kids in the system, so they jump a number of the questions that don't pertain to them. But everybody does have a say in the
Okay.
schedule. And then there's also an open-ended question at the very end that anybody can write anything they want.
So it's geared to who's taking it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So how will the survey be accessible? Will it be on our website? Will you be pushing it out through an email? And what about the?
We'll have
broader
to take a look
community?
at that. I mean, so we'll look
Right
at
now,
it.
we're setting up all of our distribution lists with the company that is executing the survey. So anybody who is on who normally gets our communications in the community, who has signed up for them, will get them. Students, it will go, I think, as a single time link through Skyward or however the IT people are doing it. But IT has been working with K-12 Insight to set up all the framework, and it will be available on the webpage
Through
as
the
well.
webpage,
If people
yes.
don't receive the email, if they're not on one of our distribution lists.
Yeah, and we sent out a placard card, postcard to the community. So we've communicated out there to the larger community.
And that's on the same that's the same webpage that also has a copy of the presentation from last week.
It has everything, yeah.
And the survey embedded in the introduction will be the link to the video presentation. There will be the link to the slides, and there will also be the link to the section of the website where we've set up all the information that's been housed on the alternative schedules task force. So there'll be 3 links in the intro, and I believe they're also going to try to put the links at certain points in the survey, like you get to the bottom of the page, if you miss it in the intro, it'll be in other places in the survey as well.
Excellent.
So the postcard that was sent out, you're talking about in the past that first alerted to the presentation, there's not going to be another postcard that's sent out, right? You're just talking about the first one that got sent out. Will the survey be then cross-pollinated? I don't know the right word. Will it be available at the village website as well?
Yes, we sent them all the information and the links. They were going to put it on their webpage.
Okay. And then there'll be some kind of, I guess, some way that the consulting company will ensure that people don't submit 5 times.
Yeah, so it's anonymous, but there's a way that they could track if someone,
Okay.
tried to stuff the ballot box. Yes.
Okay,
And-
thank you.
Yeah. So I just want to clear, I know there's a lot of confusion. So the purpose of the survey, I mean, we had the presentation, which was excellent, by the way, last week. So the survey is what's the purpose of the survey? Is the community going to pick?
No.
Or is it really more of a?
No, so the survey is asking for a lot of different questions, depending on what you do. But if you get in the full
Right.
survey, like say a parent, it's asking, do you find your child having difficulty in the morning, things like that? What time do you take the bus? All these different questions, how is it affecting you? How would a later start time affect you with, sports activities after school? So all those things we're going to try and discern out. Then there's also questions about the parameters that we're giving for the different times. So the reason why we put the parameters was because and I called it the guts last week in the presentation, is we could figure out how long the periods have to be, or we have to shave off a minute here or shorten lunch or whatever we do. But I need the community to know, like, here's the start time and here's an end time. How could that affect you and how do you weigh in? Because there's just too many options to put out there for schedules. I mean, for the high school alone, I mean, Stacy and I could put out 20 plus schedules. That's just overwhelming for anybody to digest. And that's not productive. You gotta figure out what they want to do. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. And then once you figure out where the community wants to go, where the teachers want to go, then we can start talking about what does that look like? And then we can do follow-up surveys when we narrow down exact times to schedules for what that looks like.
And I think we also, it's not only about, the start and end times, but as Dr. Gorman said, there are a good number of questions in there for people to share what they are concerned about. Will this have an impact on, are you concerned about it having an impact on daycare? Are you concerned about it having, an impact on your ability to get to your job on time? So this is really just for feedback. It's not like people are going to give us this and we're going to pick a schedule based on it. It's, it is a very complex issue and there are a lot of things to consider, but it is really just for us to get more information about what our parents are thinking, what our broader community is thinking, what our students are thinking, and then to use that to inform next steps. As we bring this big group of 50 or so people that are working on this, we want to bring that group back together. One thing about K-12 Insights is that they will distill and cross-pollinate a lot of, elementary parents said this as opposed to middle school parents who are concerned about this. So we're really counting on their analysis of the data as well. And there are no, this is very open and to inform our next steps, and to give us something to work with so that we can proceed in a productive and effective manner.
So I attended the presentation and it was very good presentation, and the format, I really like the format where you allowed parents to ask questions and provided instant answers. I just want to understand, there were slides that presented 5 options, and I think I heard this during the presentation that we will ask the parents that pick your top 2 as part of the survey. So if I'm a parent and I receive an email or a survey where I have to pick 2 schedules, but I don't know how will those schedules affect, say, period 9 or bus timings, how can I answer? I will be answering that survey in a vacuum without knowing that detail. So 3 things are not known if I'm answering those 5 options. What will be the impact on bus schedule? Will buses still be running on the same time, or will they shift by 40 minutes or 30 minutes, that same amount of time? So that needs to be clarified, because there was a presentation earlier where from the late start team, where they had mentioned that bus schedule can still stay same. So with the changes, will it impact bus schedule, or will I be, as a parent, my child will be taking the same bus? So that is one question that was unanswered.
But that's a perfect example of where it starts to get complicated.
Right,
I'm just saying, so if you move like period 9, I'm just saying, but if you move period 9 at the high school only into the morning somehow, then bus schedules would run 15 minutes after the end of the school day. If you kept period 9 at the end of the school day, then they would run 25 minutes or so after the end of the school day.
And we would have to run, I'm sorry.
No, so I'm
And
just
we
saying,
would
it's
have
like,
to run bus routes up to close to when kids arrive at school. Otherwise, we have a supervision issue in the morning.
So
If
that-
students,
that
like,
needs-
so when I went to high school, we arrived 40 minutes on our bus before school started, and we were just sitting in the cafeteria.
Exactly.
So
So
we
that-
have to adjust. We can't have elementary kids dropped off, and then outside milling around without supervision.
Perfect. So if I know that answer, then my response will be different.
right, but this is
don't
where it
know
gets
that
tricky,
answer.
because if we added those on there, I'm
Right.
up to 7 or 8 options alone without adding more options to what parents are trying to inform us on.
No, so I'm just saying, just within those 5 options, those 3 questions can change my answer. What time is the bus going?
Right, but-
for those 5 options, what will be the bus time? Whether there will be a period 9 or not, and then whether there will be a reduction in instruction time or not within those 5. And on that point, I think one of the parameters in the presentation was that there will be no reduction in instruction time.
Right.
But after that, I've seen some posts on social media from committee members who have mentioned that the plan is to start late, but end on the current time. And that's where we are working towards. So are those 5 options just a formality? Or if
No, we've said all along that there wouldn't be a loss in instruction time. That was one of the parameters that everybody said that was what we had to work
Okay.
off of. So,
There is no current plan, correct?
no.
So that's, right.
So this is what we're trying to make, everything, I'll say, it, everything
know
is
that.
on the table. So this is where it gets extremely complicated. So you could do a 60-minute. You could actually even go back to where we were 30 years ago and do 9 periods with 43 minutes a day. You could actually go do a 70-minute periods, but then that would mean the shortened day the day would be shorter, but then you would have to come up with a 5-day rotation period and figure out how you build in an extra period that rotates every couple of days to make back that time. It gets there's so many permutations in this, and that's why I can't put out 20 different options. So with the bus schedule, I hear you, and I don't know, we could talk about how we can work that out. But if I move period 9 to the morning, that doesn't fit. I'd have to put 2 or 3, 4 more options on the survey because there's different permutations to that. It's
right. So I totally understand your dilemma, and I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
And also, I'm not denying the benefit of late start. My feedback is on the survey, just on the survey. And the feedback is that the presentation and survey combination does not provide me enough information to answer the survey. So that is my feedback. And I'll just give you some more examples. So we are saying right now, we just want to go and get the pulse that what does the community want. That could have been probably at 6 months ago. If after 6 months of work, if we are presenting 5 options, they cannot be in vacuum. If we came up with those times, if we came up a time that, okay, it's from 8:15 start time or 8:30 start time, it will end at 3:20, then the committee has done some work and spent time on that, deliberating it. Why not share that information? Why are we obfuscating it? Because it's causing
share what
confusion.
information? I don't.
What
are
are
we
the
holding back?
options? So what are the possible options?
But that's
if
what I'm saying.
it's
I mean,
full-time?
it's endless. I mean, you could say shave off 1 minute a period per period. You could say at the middle school, take out homeroom. You could say leave it in homeroom. You could say build an advisory period that meets once a week. It just keeps going and going and going. We need the teachers to be working on this to try to figure out what is the best way within the minutes and the daily schedule of what it would look like. It just keeps going.
So on that, there was a question that for block schedule or 90-minute period, have we surveyed or polled teachers to confirm that they can work with that?
That'll be part of the staff survey. This is really for
Of
us
course
to
they can work
gain
with it.
preliminary information about what people have the appetite for. You know, do people have an appetite for longer periods if it means that you can somewhat shorten the day? Do people have an appetite for holding on to the type of schedule that we currently have? You know, we're just trying to gather feedback. We put in front of people options that we know can work within the confines of the parameters that, you know, that have been set. So, you know, the other part that gets a little bit complicated, you know, is that, you know, as Dr. Gorman said, even within that 7-hour and 35-minute workday, you still have some leverage, even if you're using a drop rotate model, to make some modifications that would allow us to know what people are concerned about. So, you know, if we get, you know, a response to a question that comes through as a big concern, people feel like, you know, my child uses period 9 all the time. We're going to make sure we don't lose period 9. You know, if it comes back period 9, nobody uses it. I know that's not true. You know, but, you know, we want to know what are people's concerns. Here's models that with a start and end time that we believe are educationally sound, that would be beneficial for our students. And so give us just a sense of what you are thinking about these. Are you interested in longer periods? Or are you, you know, don't like them or have, you know, and look, I think, you know, there is change is always difficult. And so, but we do have, especially at the secondary, many models where block scheduling has worked. But it depends upon, we want to know if people would even consider that as something, students, staff, and parents alike. And if this is a preliminary survey to get feedback.
And Ms. Polster brought up, I think you spoke with the school district, that they got paralyzed because the town was totally divided on the issue, which taught them that they had to go back and now educate people more and walk them through more and have many more discussions. We truly do not know where this community is on this subject. We've heard from different pockets of parents, and we've shown you what the research shows. And the research about the circadian rhythm is, you can't dispute it. It's a matter of what we could do and make work, and that's what we're looking into. And if we find that there's a gap somewhere, then that's where we have to continue the education of what we have to do to make this work for the community.
So on that, I really think my read on that was that community was or is behind the late start initiative, most of them. But after
we
the
haven't
presentation,
surveyed
right.
6,000 people. Yeah.
I get that,
Yeah.
but after the presentation, there's more confusion, and that's the feedback I just want to give you because that's what I'm hearing. And there was a question today at public comments, and I've heard that earlier also on this committee. Were there any special ed parents or representation from special ed?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know
We had
have
parents
25
apply,
I
and
think we do.
right, we had parents apply, and we tried to select a broad cross-section of parents to ensure that all different groups were represented. I can't name a person off the top of my head, but we did, we selected a certain number of parents, and, did it in a way that made sure that we tried to have every population represented.
Okay, so I have just two more questions, Tom. One
Sure.
is, was a combination of any hybrid or online time considered, that some of that time can be shifted hybrid?
No, you can't do that by state law. So that's why we can't do like snow days, virtual and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. And will this new schedule impact in any way availability of the courses? Because right now already for some of the high school students, with their schedules, they cannot take certain classes because they are in a special like band or then there's a conflict or not enough classes. So is that going to impact their ability to pick electives?
I don't perceive that being an issue now.
Okay.
I mean, you're still going to have, sometimes electives fill up or kids still have conflicts when, if I'm a music student, an elective that only runs one section still might run at the same period of my music, and I have to make a choice, and that I don't necessarily see whatever schedule we come up with will have that potential conflict, especially where you have a singleton of certain elective courses.
But will this make that problem worse?
No.
And the last one is the distribution of 5 options. So if you are going to take community's feedback based on top 2 out of 5 options, you have 3 options which are longer day and 2 options which are shorter day. So if you do a distribution of number of responses, you have advantage for the shorter day. If there are 5 people responding to those 5 or 6 people responding, so you're distributing people on 3 options versus on 2 options, right? So you'll have basically the survey is not balanced there in a shorter day versus longer day because you have 5 options.
Right, for the middle school and the high school, right?
No, for each school, for middle school 5 options and 5 options for high school.
Right.
And 3 of those options are for longer day, and somebody may pick 2 of them,
Right.
and then only 2 options for a shorter day.
Okay.
So the distribution on the shorter days is
Right. And remember, the whole thing is, it's not a vote. It's just to try to get a gauge of how the community is feeling, so to help inform us of how do we got to take our next steps.
And one of those 3 is to keep the start time where it is and not to move late start time at all. So
Right, but
that's,
it's the longer day.
that's one of them. It's to keep it exactly the way it is. So keep it exactly the way it is one option. Then you have 2 with a later start time in the current schedule and 2 with a later start time in the block schedule. So that's the way the schedules are distributed in the options.
Yeah,
Will-
but still
will
we are
there be a
distributing-
So if I don't favor late start time, then I would pick the 7:45 option, which is what we currently have.
Right.
It sounds, is there gonna be it's not like this is not the only survey that's gonna happen. Well,
No,
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the only one we'll probably put out to the whole community like this.
okay.
When it comes down to, then it comes down to what is the middle school going to do? What is the high school going to
Right.
do? And then they would talk within their community of what it would look like.
So this is not so the question is, and I know what Mr. Donnie is trying to say, this is not one and done survey, one and done presentation to the community.
Listen, I mean, this is the very beginning of this, and in the board goal, the board deliberately put in there that we will investigate, evaluate, and potentially implement an alternative school schedule. And that was one of the comments that got brought up tonight. Are we going too fast or things like that? The answer is, I don't know yet. You know, if we
Right.
get this thing, we find the whole community divided and we have to do more time and more teaching, then we may have to slow this down. But if everything's a go and people are really behind this and we get going, we could get some good momentum going. I'll have a better idea. You know, if we have to do more surveys later on, you know, that's fine. But, you know, you also start surveying things to death and we have to make a decision too. So.
And I do think, you know, the community committee has brought us to a point where, okay, we're at the point where we need some feedback. You know, if we just keep going ahead and trying to put more plans in place, then we'll be criticized for not getting feedback. So we are at a point where, you know, the committee has been meeting over several months. The subcommittees have, you know, kind of aligned priorities, have talked about options. And now we're like, okay, we've come this far. We want to know what you think. And then we'll determine when we get that, what to do next. We're trying to be as open as possible and to gather the feedback, you know, so that we can, you know, act on the input that we're given. I'm not sure we can go much further until we kind of know what our students, our staff, and our community what their feelings are.
What is the time period? If the survey goes out next week, when's the deadline to respond?
It's right before the break, so they get 2 full weeks.
And so the consultant that we've hired, what has been their experience in terms of the response rate and how representative that could be in terms of gauging the community input? Are they looking at something, because it's 2 weeks heading into the holidays. So do you get a response rate that's typically 25%? Is it 50%, 75%? Because
They talked about that in our initial meeting with them, but I can't recall that number right now. But what I do know is, you know, other districts have used this firm. This is what they do, is surveys. And, you know, I spoke specifically to the person who used them for the late start time out in Minnesota. And, you know, to check the references to see, and they were very satisfied. So being that this is, you know, what they do, and we've shared with them where we are in our process, I think if they felt that, you know, we weren't ready to give a survey yet or hadn't done, you know, enough preliminary work, I think they would have given us some feedback about that and said, you know what, you should hold off until such and such happens. So, you know, we have been meeting with them regularly and, you know, have asked, like, do you think this is the right way to go? Do you think, you know, structuring it this way will work? And so, you know, we've been partnering with them to try to develop, you know, a survey at this time that will give us the feedback we need to move forward.
if there wasn't this February, not deadline, but an awareness, let's say, of busing contracts and the need to formulate that for the upcoming year, if there wasn't that consideration, do you think that that survey could be offered post-holiday, like in January, and open longer than 2 weeks to get as broad a sample as possible? Right now, we are, holiday, vacation, college application. I mean, there's just, this is it's a very hectic period. This is an important issue. And I would hate for it to not get the full attention that it really deserves.
When we've spoken with the consultants at K-12, they said to us, they get their greatest response rates initially when they first send the link out. And then when they send a reminder about when the survey is closing, kind of regardless of the time of year that they do it. I think the other important note for us in terms of logistics and getting feedback is, we also, in addition to busing, the high school in particular, given its large population and vast array of course offerings, they start framing out their schedule for September by February and really need that time as kids pick electives and all of that to start to figure out sectioning and that's a job that takes many months to build, especially the high school schedule. So I think that's the other reason why too, putting off the survey too late would also bump into, the building of that schedule. Would you say that that's accurate, Dr. Gorman?
That's perfect.
So reading into it, it really is part of this time frame is to try and have a change implemented or have that option available for September 2022. Right. So
Well,
that's what it is.
So
right?
that is our
Right.
initial, that is our initial.
Right. So
That's been our initial goal, but we said we've been open. If it doesn't work out, we're not going to force the data and we have to educate the community more, then we'll have to do some more work. But that has been the goal all along. Yes.
Ms. Brogan.
Because I don't feel that we spend enough time educating the full public. There are lots of people who get this. Talking to people who are sort of scratching their heads about, why can't I be there? Why can't I just say, okay, or whatever, and so I have a little concern about putting out survey. But have talking that there is a thing. So it's easy to say. However,
Well, and I think that's a very slippery slope, right? How much time? 5 minutes, 25 minutes, a half an hour a day? I had a conversation with someone and I said, look, when I was a senior in high school, I got out at 1 o'clock every day. Guess what? I couldn't pass math in college. Instructional time matters, so where does that, that would be, again, a whole separate conversation. So if the feedback comes back and, goes in the direction of, okay, now we want you to go outside of the parameters that were originally part of this, exploration, then definitely we would need more time. But it is, that becomes a whole second question and a whole different conversation.
So that the minute adds up.
Yes, because eventually your child would be going, because but they're going to be able to tease out how elementary parents responded on the elementary options, how elementary parents responded on the high school options, and then to be able to help us prioritize that data. You know, so you'll be able to tease out how did high school parents feel about the high school options, even if everybody is weighing in. If I have a middle schooler who's going to high school next year, you know, I think that that's important to allow those people to weigh. Mackerel.
That's one. But then when I begin to say, well, I would like to start at 8:30, then it's 3:30, I'm like, I can't do something. What's in the middle? I've heard parents go, that's too short. I know short. High school, short. Club activities.
And also with a unit lunch, you have so many kids who are eating lunch at the same time, you know, so shortening it becomes a bit of a logistical concern. Right, yes. Yeah, yeah.
It's just, I think that the survey, I'm hoping that survey is vetted very carefully, not only by your result. You may not have all the knowledge.
No, the committee, we haven't shared it with the committee. It's just been with the administrators and other people that have been working on this. So you have to remember, like, so the reason why we hired the consultant is just because you wanted certain questions that have withstood the test of time. If you start getting it very individualized, then we could have just done a Google form and then, you know, and we've been criticized every time we've done a survey in the past. And it's just so, because everybody's going to say, we didn't say this, it didn't say this, it didn't say this. You got to be very careful with that. Those surveys going to please everybody with whatever, but we're trying to get manageable pieces of data that we could work with to try to inform us to move forward a little bit. And that's, remember, it's not the end all be all. It's just, it's one data point to help inform us to move forward to the next step. And if it informs us that we need some more time, I mean, there was another district we talked to, they spent 4 years on this. You know, this community didn't seem like 4 years was, you know, that was too much time, you know? So, you know, we're trying to find that balance of where we're at with this. And you also don't want to be stalemated either, so.
No. I'm certainly not recommending any 4 years, but I am concerned about the level of information that has already been out. I'm concerned about offering options. And if it's not really conceptual, if those questions aren't just concepts and not these options, I think that leads to problems. But again, not having seen the survey.
Well,
don't know
I
what it
mean,
looks like.
so we can slow it down. We could share the survey with the board. We could share it with the 50 committee members and all that stuff. And then start taking a look at this. And if this is what, you know, everybody wants to do, but you know, that now you're talking January, February, so.
Okay, sorry, I was patiently waiting. All right, so here is my concern. And I want to thank you guys, because again, it's really easy for me to sit here with doing the least amount of work, and I know it all comes down to you guys, so it's really easy for me to sit here and criticize you or to say you should have done this or you should have done that. But I think what happens is we got wrapped up in the how and not the why. And a lot of the people in the community just didn't understand why we were doing this. And I think that would have been, I don't want to say we missed the mark, but I think it should have been more focused on this is why we're doing this. These are the studies. This is the research. This is the data. This has been going on since 2014. A lot of this stuff on social media was 90-minute block, 90-minute block, 90-minute block. Everybody was so overwhelmed with the 90-minute block that, I ended up, I don't want to say it was damage control, but trying to, pivot them to understand why we're talking about this. The reason we're talking about this is because of all the benefits and all the studies that were done and all the research and all the data. And instead, people got hung up with the how and not the why. And so if we are doing a survey, there has to be something in there that it says, do you know why we're doing this? Have you studied alternative start times? Do you know anything about, some of those questions need to be answered. Are you in support of this? Are you aware of this? I mean, we have to educate the community as to why we're doing this. And then the only problem I see with the 5 options is, you're sort of only giving, and I know there's so many different options, and I'm sorry, again, it's really easy for me to say this, but all I see is longer period length. And as a parent, that's what I'm gonna focus on. And I don't see anything that really sort of benefits my child. All I see is longer period time and not, do you know all the studies done and why it's important. And a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing on social media and a lot of the stuff that I've been getting is maybe we should reduce instruction time. And I know that's gonna rile a lot of people up, but if you have a kid who is now focused and coherent and awake, he can absorb the material in a shorter amount of time. And that's what a lot of the parents have been saying. That's one of the callers said. I think Susan Madison brought that up with one of the other districts, that they actually reduced the class time. And so, obviously we need teacher buy-in, but I think one of the main focuses has to be the why before we talk about the how. And once we get everybody to buy in with this is important, then we can sort of cultivate that attitude of, okay, now that you guys we're all in, this is how we need to, these are the options. This is how we're going to make it happen. So as much as I don't want to delay this, and as sad as I'm going to be that, in 3 weeks, I won't even have any input other than a parent, and hopefully I could stay on the committee somehow as a parent. I think it's important that when the survey goes out, we do have more input on the survey. I think it's going to take the committee to go in and say, I'm a little concerned that if we just give 1 through 5 options, that's not going to go over well. And we need to talk about, maybe there is an opportunity here to adjust instructional time if it benefits the schedule, and we can come up with another, more rotations. One of the parents said, maybe shorter class time, but more rotations. I don't know, but I just want to be careful that if we just put out these 5 options, that might end up causing a backlash.
Right. And the points you make are great. The reason, and this is why I was talking about the cart and the horse. The reason why we felt we had to go this way was to get a feel from the community about shifting this, because it does impact so many things later on. If you did it the other way, we'll just pick on the high school right now. If the high school decided to come up with 5 different options, that would take them a couple of months to come up with these different options. They have to lay them out, and then we'd have to present them all. And then if we went to the community, they said, no, we don't even want to start later. All that work would have been for naught. So that's why I was just saying, I think this is the correct way to proceed. However, if we are moving too fast and we need to share the survey with some people and stuff like that, then we have to, do that, but just know that, it might not be implemented for September. So, and I just want to share, so I know I'm a little partial, but at the high school, this has been discussed for a long time. We've had several presentations at the high school level. The League of Women Voters just did a recent one. I think they've done 2 other presentations to the community over the past couple of years. We shared out at the board meetings, lots of information. It's been on the website. So we have been putting a lot of things out, and I know we can always do more, but there has been a lot of information over the past couple of years. I think it was about 4 years ago, I presented with Mr. Nias and I think Mr. Pizzuto and Mr. Cook about late start time and the positives and negatives and challenges. So it's been talked about, it's been out there. I agree, we can never do enough, but on the other hand, you also have to move the ball forward if you're going to make some decisions about this.
And I think, Dr. Gorman is just trying to be conscientious of, that this is a district goal for this year. And so we're trying to, be as proactive as we can to, move it along. But I certainly understand this. It is complicated and there's a lot of moving parts to it. And, there's a lot for people to weigh and to think about. So,
I
I
mean,
mean, we're, you know,
So listening to Chris, and thanks, Chris, for that, because I think it is. Is not the purpose of this survey really the why? Are you aware? Do you know? Do you need more information? What are your concerns? What are the challenges if we were to start later in the morning and later? If we did nothing, would that be okay? I mean, I think those are the basics. So I get concerned when I hear that we were going to put options in for scheduling when we don't have any meat to that. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, ultimately, we have to do what we think is right. And as much as I don't want to delay the process, I would love the survey to be more focused on the why. And then once we get community buy-in, and then to Ms. Kwok's point, again, timing is great, but at least if we got it out early to see if we can get response on that with a why, then the next one could be a how, and working on the different schedules. Or if you guys feel that this is the right thing, is to put another option in there, like option 6. I don't like any of these. I hate to say it. I mean, what I don't want is to hinder us to be able to move forward, because again, I'm looking at it right now, and all I'm focused on is longer. And I hate to say it. That was the consensus of what I read on social media. And I don't want to slow the process down, but I just don't want to hurt this whole initiative.
Right.
Because people are hyper focused on maybe these 90-minute blocks that just whatever reason seem to rile people up.
Yeah, and it is interesting because so many schools within the country, and there's so much data that supports the 90-minute blocks, and they're in New Jersey. They've been used at the middle school and the high school, and I'm not advocating for that, but there's no, there's a problem with any schedule, 60 minutes, 43, or 90, and there's also positives to them, and 90 minutes has a lot of positives, and that's part of the education process. So as the high school or the middle school decides to come down to, is it 50, 60, 80, or 90 minutes? That would be a time to educate the community more and more.
Well, even that included into the survey is the other districts that are doing 90 minutes and why that's positive, and some of the positives have come, because again, it was a knee-jerk reaction to having a kid in a class for 90 minutes, which is what seemed to set people off on social media.
Right.
I think also, we have to be careful too, because we don't want to be accused of leading people either. Like there may be some people, and they may not be the loudest right now, but there may be people who, despite the scientific research, want to keep it at 7:45.
Oh, there is.
And so if we're going to go out there with a survey that, shares the research, said we should do this because, but then the people who are we really open to the people who want to keep things the way they are, and I want to be, I don't want it to look like we are, putting a survey out there that we're not sincere in, and I want to be careful about how much leading we would do as well, and the why, like the sleep science is definitely there. We've been talking about that out in the public for quite some time. So I don't want it to look like, hey, if you don't want to change start time, I don't know. That puzzles me a little bit. And I just, that concerns me a little bit. And I'd like to ask K-12 Insight, like how much research, do you put either as at the start of the survey? I don't know. I'm a
Well, the
little
thing is
concerned about that.
the whole point of this is because of the studies and the science. So, I mean,
Right,
it's not that we're
right.
leading them, but we're sort of explaining why we're even talking about it. So I don't think it's leading them as much as it is educating them as to the thought and the process and why we're doing this is all based on the science. We're not just changing the to a later start time because we think it's a fun thing to do.
Right.
We're doing it because of a specific, specific research and specific biology that kids go through. I don't know that it would be considered leading, but I definitely think it's important that we talk about the why, and again, the scheduling just seems to set people off. And I don't know if maybe that could be the next survey is, okay, now that we have community buy-in, here are some of the options. And maybe again, as much as I don't want to hold the survey up, I think maybe there needs to be certain things added as, would you be open-minded to shorter class periods and more rotations? Less instructional time, because a lot of parents have said that they feel that it's too much right now, that their kids are overwhelmed. And again, to your point, Dr. Gorman, there's also tons of data on the 90 minutes. I just think you just have to give people options, not a million, but just enough to help them make informed decisions.
So I think I'm hearing, we're slowing it down to, I want to give the survey to at least the board and this committee and have people look at that. We'll talk to K-12 a little bit more.
And I also think just, it was brought up, if the principals are making it more known at the schools too.
Yeah,
I know the high school has definitely been talking about it, but I don't know how much the elementary schools have been discussing it.
I know all the faculty meetings did. I just don't know if all the HSA meetings of the elementary people had a meeting about that, but I'll find out.
I mean, I do want to recognize personally the amount of work the committees have done. And I do
100%.
believe that you are at a point where you do need some external feedback. My concern is this is a very, very hectic period on a complicated issue where there's not been a lot of lead-in awareness. And I personally feel that when you do a survey, it should be presented in a very neutral way. That is the point of the survey. And so there's the educational component, and then there's the actual gathering of the data. And I think Kay, through the company, the consulting firm that we hired, will probably advise us to segment it, bifurcate as much as possible, so that when the survey does come out, you get a very honest, pure perspective. And that may mean splitting out the educational component first, the why, if you will, the rationale behind it, and then sending out the survey. I think if you try and put both at the same context, it just, people also don't have time to do the survey and then also read it all within the holiday period.
Yeah, I recall back in our early discussions with K-12, when we spoke with them and talked about the planning, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Gorman, but they felt that sending one survey over sending different ones over time was more effective, because you had a captive audience. You were able to layer in the section on people's concerns alongside what the options were, and be able to kind of, when you get that information at one time, it gives you more to work with. Am I correct in recalling that?
Yeah,
Like
I believe so, yeah.
that was their recommendation to us also. So.
Okay, so Ms. Polster and I will go back and talk to them. We already have meetings set up in January and everything like that. We'll talk to K-12 this week. And then we'll figure out our next steps and get back to everybody here.
Actually, I have
Nora?
a couple questions. So are there any students on the committee?
No, we didn't have that. They were going to be on when we got to the next level. When you got to your individual building, then we were going to bring the students in and talk more of the specific stuff.
Okay, and then are students from the high school all the way down to elementary school receiving this survey? or
No,
is
just
it
6 to 12.
6 to 12. So how are you going to format the survey so that students understand the full grasp of what's being asked? Because a very professional looking survey might be confusing to the middle schoolers. And
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And we went over that.
Yeah,
And the questions were tailored and some were omitted. The questions that we were going to be asking, and we tweaked them a little bit for the middle school and the high school, they'd be able to understand it.
And the principals are also going to do an overview before the administration of the survey.
Oh,
To
okay,
do some
so-
kind of a presentation to provide a context for the students to understand
Mhm.
what's going on.
And is there a comment section on the survey so people can outwardly express if they're very much against the idea of starting
Correct.
later?
Yes.
Correct.
There's an
Okay, so-
open-ended at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
And just one more time, I know it's really easy for me to sit here and say what I said, and I know how much work you guys do, so please don't take that as I
Not at
don't
all.
appreciate
Yeah, for sure.
how much effort you guys have put into this. So
No,
thank you so
not at
much.
all. And I appreciate that. And the biggest thing is I don't want, and it saddens me that so many people are commenting on social media saying, no, no, no. there is a lot of education that has to go into explaining a lot of things, I've actually been to a number of districts that had 90-minute blocks, and we actually have some staff members that came from that, and they just talk about how wildly successful it is. And every system, every schedule, once you get used to it after 2 years, everybody finds they love whatever schedule they have. And 25, 30 years ago, when Ridgewood switched from 43 to 60, supposedly there was, there was a lot of resentment here. And we were the leading district of doing that. And then after 2 years, nobody has thought about looking back and doing that. And now we're the model for people. And so, change is difficult. So I get that. And maybe we need a little more time, then we'll spend more time on it. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll move on to the agenda with attendance at conferences. I present for consideration.
You said conferences. I second.
Oh, sorry. No. Oh, you.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Lumbo. Yes.
I present for consideration B, administration.
I move B.
Second.
I just want to point out on the 22-23 school calendar, that change for the teacher conference days is in the second week of November. And a lot of people do plan that in advance because that's something they can count on. So after, if this is approved tonight, can that get sent out? Yeah.
It'll be posted.
Well,
It-
posting is one thing.
No, we'll send it out. We'll do a proactive approach. And that caught every district by surprise.
Right.
And I didn't even realize this, and I should have known this as a history.
Yeah, we
You
gotta
always
look
know
that
it's
up.
a
Yeah.
Tuesday, right? But you
Right.
need to have the first Monday of the month, so that's why it pushed. I don't recall ever being this
The
late.
election is late.
So it's just the
Yeah,
way
I mean, it happens. It rotates.
every once in a while, yeah.
Right.
So,
Sort of like Labor Day, right?
And there was a
Yeah, maybe
date on Yom Kippur. as well,
yes,
it changed.
and right, we moved it to the correct date of Yom Kippur.
Right.
Good catches, good catches. Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Lumbo. Yes.
I present for consideration C, curriculum instruction.
I move C.
Second.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Lumbo. Yes.
I present D, human resources for consideration.
Tom,
Oh.
there's one change on the
Okay.
addendum that's not on the,
Ms. Towns,
Page 9.
sorry,
page 9.
page 9. Ms. McCain,
Yes.
Mahoney, Ms. Mahoney's base salary was adjusted in the addendum, but the copies at your desk does not have to change for her salary.
So Ms. Mahoney,
Yes,
all right, so you
Marissa
changed
Mahoney.
the base salary
yes,
in the addendum.
but
Okay,
it's not on this agenda, so
Okay.
it's only on the addendum.
so I present for consideration with that change.
All right, I'll move.
Second.
And the addendum will be posted on the website also.
Yes, we'll put it correct one. I'll get from Lucy.
Throwing me a curveball tonight, Ms. Towns.
I know. They
Ms.
copied
Brogan.
The wrong one, sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes, and I want to point out that this also does include funds from the ESSER funds for after school, some additional
Correct.
curriculum support. So this, I'm
Yes.
really happy to see this. So, yes.
Good.
Mr. Lumbo. Yes.
I present finance for consideration.
I move finance.
Second.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
I'm going to abstain on E2. So yes on E1 and E3 and abstain on E2.
Ms. Clark,
I think the issue for me was that for E2, I didn't have the information, but I trust that you get it to us eventually. So yes.
Mr. Lumbo. Yes, I want to also just point out on E1, I want to specifically thank the donations, the Ridgewood High School Student Congress, the Learning Services Home and School Association, the Ridgewood High School Alps Club, Schwab Charitable, and the Bergen County Utilities Authority for their gifts. We sincerely appreciate those.
All right. Moving on, number 8 on page 22, I'm going to present for consideration the resolution to continue membership in Northeast Bergen County School Board Insurance.
I'll move.
I move A.
You gonna second it or I moved it?
Oh, you did? I
Yeah.
second it.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Lumbo. Yes. That's the only one we have, correct? Yep. I present 9, which is all the bills with my names attached to it. I went through the bills that Mr. Bisek prepared for me. Thank you very much. And everything looks in order.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Lumbo. Yes. Board member announcements. Ms. Brogan?
It was so nice to receive the invitation today from Jeff Haas for the high school concert tomorrow night. It's really nice to see those activities coming back. BF had their concert, so elementary schools, so yeah. nice.
Yeah, so I attended the band banquet the other night, so it was nice to bring those traditions back. And they were talking about the traditions, when the kids have been gone for 2 years, and when they went to the band camp, you realized the seniors and the older classmen that were gone weren't there to teach. These freshmen didn't really know what to do, and so you had to take a step back, teach them everything that they do, teach them the traditions, keep those alive, and then continue forward. And they did exceptionally well this year, so it's great. It was a great banquet.
And just recognize all the accomplishments of our student athletes too, of course, and the band.
Yeah.
What a terrific first half of the year.
I think band had 15 all county, which is a record for us.
Yeah, it was a lot.
So it's just incredible what happens.
That's great. An article. This is on later school start times, reduced car accidents, and improved team safety. So again, that's just part of that information gathering.
Well, to that point, I just want to say that specifically, interestingly enough, so on social media, I posted that when this whole thing, and I got one of the parents responded that I was grasping at straws when I said that there was actually fewer car accidents when kids got more sleep. And so I had to share an article. So again, not to say it again, when we talk about the why, there's so many parents out there that just don't understand the benefits and the data that's out there. And this specifically came up. And you would think, well, why would there be less car accidents because of more sleep? But it's all tied in to depression and sleep deprivation. So it's just, again, it's such an important initiative. And thank you all for taking the time. Stacy, Tom, I know how much work you guys put into it.
Yeah.
We also got an email, that one article too, that was interesting as well. I don't know if you checked your email, that said that it benefits sleep. It was a great thing, but it really didn't affect grades, which was interesting. It's just a different point that it was been going on. I'd say the one district was going on since like 96, which is, a very long time. And so they have a lot of data, which is really, it was interesting, but It did impact the students' sleep, and I think that boosted their learning. But they said that the other benefits weren't there as much. But again, the why, we want to
Yeah.
help the kids in their sleep. So
No, I think it
Important.
comes down to more the social and emotional
Right,
impact
I agree.
of it. But yeah, thank you, Sheila.
That's it. That's all right. Good.
Yeah.
Mr. Donnie?
I don't know. Thank you.
Just want to, I guess I'll highlight a couple things that, now at this time of year, I see a lot of the students out there doing goodwill. We have a lot of fundraisers been going on, but I see a lot of charity work that the students are doing. And whether it's the sports teams or the band, the arts, everybody's got some sort of fundraiser, and they're not just raising money for themselves, they're also donating a lot of things. It's really great to see our community come together. This past weekend on Friday was the annual Downtown for Holidays, and it was great seeing all the students. The band was going up and down the avenue. They're always a great sight to see. And the students, whether it's Project Interact or all different groups, were out there just being kids and also helping out. So it's always a great thing to see. And the community is coming together to doing their drives. I know the Kelly Cregan coat drive was last weekend, and I amaze every year how many coats that they gather. And I don't know what I do know, but I see, I'm like, I don't know what you do with all these coats, because there is so many, and it's great to see the whole community come out, and such a great cause. So that's all I have. We had a lot of toy drives. There's one at Somerville, so it was really good. So moving on to committee reports. I know me and Ms. Kwok were just finalizing with Mr. Weisick. Possibly this week, the finance committee is going to meet. If we can set that date up, or definitely by next week, but 100% before our next meeting. What else?
I just want to say that I'm a liaison, to the safety committee, village safety committee. And so for a long time, we've been talking about sidewalk improvements. And it was great to see that for the last few weeks, they've been working and have finished installing sidewalks on Glen Avenue, which was a much needed spot. So from the difficult piece there was from Heights to Hillcrest. So on one side, minus a small section, that sidewalk has been completed. They're also going to do an actuated signal. I think it will be at Hillcrest that you'll be able to, there'll be blinking lights and highlight crossings, since you would have to cross from one side to the other side to continue on the sidewalk. So thank you to the village for that. This is a request that's been long in coming to really see that in action. And the second is that Mr. Donnie and I had a facilities committee meeting on the 1st. We're finalizing those minutes. You'll have them. But just the good news is that the digital controllers at Somerville, that seems to have been a very successful project in making that, taking out the Allerton controls and putting in new controls. And then you'll see in the minutes, looking at doing that in a section of Travell and also at Pause, right? Yeah. So to get that particular system out so that we have better controls on the heating. So you'll see that in the facilities committee minutes.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Discussion items. Revision to attachment D.
So on that one, there's a correction in the agenda on page 9 of the policy, or the second last page of the PDF, where it mentions January 1, 2022. It should be July 1, 2022. And actually, That may be the only correction, because when I was looking at that, I thought the other one also did not go through, the HR one, but that may just be a format issue.
Originally was January because we had talked about this so long ago. And
Right.
the whole purpose is to make sure that everybody has time. You don't just cut it. That's why it was moved.
So July 2022.
Right.
I have concerns about this policy as it's written. I don't think mine were really addressed. But then when I'm just looking at the data. So just as a, sort of a grounding in it, our enrollment is down. We're at 56 as of December 1st. We're down about 100 students from maybe 18 months ago, when we were at about 57, 66. We've gone up a little bit since January of 2021, from 5620 to 5656. So it's not really a big increase. Currently, we have 50 staff children enrolled in the district who don't live in the district. 22 in the elementary schools, 11 in middle school, 17 in high school, but they're all in different grades, so it's not impacting any particular grade. Where we would be asking our staff to go from next year, what is it, 800 and something dollars? And I know it's new staff, so new staff. To depending upon what those non-residential tuition rates are for next year, these are on this year's, anywhere from 4,900 to 5,600, depending on the grade. Has this, my first question is, has this, because as we do any policy, we want to make sure that impacted people are aware of it. And although I know this is grandfathering current staff, it does impact the union. And then what's the message that we're sending? And, for years, this has been a perk. There's been certainly a positive to having our staff members experience the schools and to give feedback and be part of that. I think it does, for those who choose to do that, I do think that it's great that our staff is supportive of our schools and know what's happening in the schools. I also am worried about some of the wording in this policy in terms of, if I look at on page 38 of the agenda, G, tuition will cover only the typical costs associated with an education in the Ridgewood School District. Any extraordinary costs will be borne by the parents or guardians. Now, when you talk about extraordinary costs, that has to be related to special education.
Yes.
But then you begin, examples of extraordinary costs include, but are not limited to, fees for OT, PT, aides, and out-of-district transportation. So if a student is going here and they're going to go out of district, is it 35% of that tuition? Because you're not saying it's the tuition. So you're saying, and then it says children of any district employee hired after, and I know you're sending it, you're changing it to July 2022, will be assessed a tuition rate of 35% of the board approved out of district. Again, out of district. So what does that mean? When you're reading that, is that your intent? Is it a child out of district, or is it a child who doesn't reside, a family who doesn't reside in district? So I'm just.
So I can
This is,
clarify.
this is under the children of district employees.
Right, no, it's in both. It's a boilerplate language. This is at two different places.
Oh, two different places.
There's another place where we say that out of district students can come here. But in both places, it explains that the transportation is parents' responsibility.
Right.
And then, so it's not 35% of transportation because it clearly says transportation is parents' responsibility in a different clause here.
I just think it's, the wording's confusing.
Right, so but this can be, there, even if a student is studying in our district, there can still be transportation required during the year for different purposes, for a school trip or something. For, I am just going on this based on both attorneys. Both of our attorneys, the special ed attorney and Matt, have reviewed this. And we can maybe go back and ask them to clarify G, but we have, I think we have given them enough.
Yeah, I mean,
Time.
if
Which is
there's,
oh, excuse me.
go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're here and you're providing transportation and there is a field trip, the parent has to
we can-
provide?
That we can go and clarify what it is, but the regular transportation, the day-to-day transportation is parents' responsibility. So I'm just clarifying that. That's.
No, it
there
is
a
in there. It is in there.
Yeah.
It's that paragraph that's bothersome.
Right.
And also the rise of tuition and then what the message is, so.
So, right, so I would like to respond to that because you raised some good points, but I think unfortunately that only raises the one negative of rise of tuition because the intent of this policy is there is a lot of positive for our existing staff. It may impact a very small number that will be hired after July 2022, but everybody is grandfathered, all 700, 800 employees who are currently here. This policy allows them to send their special ed student to our district. The
Right.
current policy did not allow them. The current policy prohibited that. And the new policy will allow, there are teachers and administrators who had to move to Ridgewood so their students can attend Ridgewood School District with the current policy, and this new policy will change that. So that's a big, that's the driver for this.
Yes,
Um,
but yeah, they can do it, but then they have to pay.
No, so but there will be still, there will be some special services which require additional employees. Only
Right.
those will require, we will have to pay. Not, so we are opening up for a lot. So that's one positive. And so there is a bigger benefit to existing staff than we have to bring in that money from somewhere. And then still, when we are saying from the messaging perspective, so we are saying messaging is, we are not restricting special ed, we are welcoming that for existing staff. Then the fee is going up, or there is no increase for the fee for existing staff or anybody who will be hired in this school year. So anybody who's already in process, already considering Ridgewood, and we are giving
Right.
6 months down the road. So it's up until June 30th, 2022, there will be no impact. They'll
So
still
they would
continue
know
to pay-
going into it.
Yeah, they'll still continue to pay $895 per year, and the new ones will pay $4,500, while the expense to the district is in 14,000, 15,000 range. So it's still 35%. We're not charging the entire fee. And that 35% is coming again from professional advice. This number did not come from the policy committee. The number came from the attorneys, what they have seen in other similar districts.
It's also
And-
the same rate that is given to like for aftercare and for infant toddler. It's the same, this kind of rate. It's
Right, so
the
this
same
is not
number.
a number that we just pulled
Right.
from a vacuum. This is the rate that was recommended by professionals. So the new fee does not impact current employees, 722. Then as far as messaging, so if you look at the total dollar amount, today, for 50 students, the total dollar amount is $750,000. So $750,000, which is if we really want, as a board, if we really want to benefit that for our employees, then we should find a way to distribute that among all the employees instead of benefiting a very small number of employees with bigger chunk, right? So that can be distributed in different incentives, and that can benefit more people if that's the budget amount we want to spend. And over the years, so it will not make an impact
Just go
today.
back over that again.
Can I finish?
Yeah, but
So-
no, but go back over
I
what
let
you were just saying.
finish, but can you, if you can let me finish? So overall, what we are saying is this is not going to impact anybody anytime soon. this will be over time. So employees who will start after July 2022, they will start paying into that tuition, and eventually that will benefit the district. And as far as the enrollment numbers going down, even if our enrollment numbers are, this is not impacting this, but since you made that point, the enrollment numbers are down, but still class sizes are big. I've heard from different parents that some of our class sizes are big. I can tell you, in one of the middle schools, advanced math is 30 students in there in the advanced math class. So the class sizes are not small. We do have larger class sizes. And again, that is not impacted by these 50 students. But since you brought up the number of enrollment, we still have problem of larger class sizes.
If you're looking at the policy, this was with professional guidance. And if you think about an evaluation of this versus comparables, Mr. Bisek, his old district, they charge 50%. Some districts charge 100%. Some districts don't allow employees to send their children to the schools until they've had, they're either tenured, 3, 4, 5 years. There's lots of restrictions that have been placed on other districts. This is a policy that is currently in place at other school districts. And so we thought this seemed equitable. This was fair, and it allowed more participation by the current staff.
Yeah, I see that as a positive for the current staff.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So just on that policy, did I just hear that we have to clarify a little bit about whether it's tuition or a few things, just a little bit of wording?
Transportation cost.
Transportation.
Yeah, that one part of it.
And what about tuition? If a child has to go out of district, is Ridgewood on the hook for the full amount? Parent would have to pay for the full amount.
So it's like
of a child going out of
page
district.
37, number H, it says responsibility for pupil transportation shall be assumed by the parent or guardian.
Right.
That should be more clarified.
But if we're going to decide to send the child out there, so the parents paying for the transportation, but also they're paying for the tuition of the child at that other place?
Yes, but that's, I think Sheila's point, that if it's already out of district student, then how are we sending them out of district?
Right,
But-
because
No, so what I'm saying is, say we've accepted the kid for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And then our child study team then says, no, this kid needs to go out of district.
So then, yes, we need to clarify.
No, actually, from what I remember, the attorney said in that case, then that resident would go to their
Back to their
home.
home
Yeah, back
district.
to their home district.
I believe that's how.
Yeah, but
That's
this- I
right.
think her
So
point is
aren't
that
we
needs to be done.
discriminating still?
No. They're residents of a different district. They're teachers, they're employees. And if the child is deemed by the Ridgewood, and they send their children to Ridgewood schools, but the child study team here deems that out of district is a viable option or the only option, then just like everybody else, you'd have to go to your home district, which is not Ridgewood, and they would pursue that process there. That's what the
Okay, so I
attorney,
think
that would be the
I think that
process.
runs into problems. It was clearer, I thought, when you made the differentiation between those students needing special education services would not be educated in this district, which was our former policy.
Yeah, so that on G, we can clarify.
I'll reach out to the attorney.
I'd also like to hear, we've sort of made it, not in all times, but a practice where we don't split up, we've done it with, mostly we've done it with benefits, health benefits, but mostly we are uniform in our practice towards our teachers and not having one group to have one
Oh, I
thing and
see.
another group having another,
Oh,
Yeah.
stratification based
So,
on the
yeah.
start date.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. We're all with that. Let's move on. Chris, you had
Well, I just wanted to say, it's what, we're 3 months into the school year and something like that. And, there was all this talk about learning loss, and don't get me wrong, I know our kids, have had some issues. But I've spoken to so many parents that messaged me last year that were like, what are we going to do about learning loss? My kid is suffering. And again, my daughter suffered last year, that have said to me, you know what? And to the parent who's listening, I'm not talking about my conversation with you, I'm talking about another parent, because it's going to mimic a lot of what this other parent said. But my kid's not doing great, but my kid's doing okay. And we hear all these broad statements. What are we going to do about learning loss? But I think it's important when parent comes to us and says, what are we doing about learning loss? How are we spending the ESSER funds? Tie that into what's going on with your kid. Because what this parent said to me was, I almost felt like I needed to continue emailing you just because I had started this process last year of I was so concerned. And this year, my kid is actually doing okay. And I think it's important for parents, if your kids are doing okay, let us know that. We're so concerned about learning loss that it was so refreshing to hear this parent say, you know what? It's not ideal. My kid's wearing a mask, still adjusting, but my kid is okay. And, it's going to be a little selfish. And I'm not saying that my daughter's great, even though she is amazing. And I'm patting myself on the back in any way, shape, or form. But, my daughter went into middle school in 6th grade, lost half of her 6th grade to remote learning. All of 7th grade was hybrid and remote. And last year was a challenge. I'd come home, I'd work with her for hours. And she's always been a good student, but she's always had to work a little harder than my son did. And I can tell you right now, I have not helped her once this year. She is an A+ student across the board. And I want to just thank the teachers and the administration. It is just amazing to see her thrive this year when I had major concerns. I mean, 8th grade is a very challenging year, and to miss out on all of, half of 6th grade, almost all of 7th grade, hybrid and remote. Here's a child that is actually, I have not had to help her once this year. So I just, I want to encourage community members, listen, we definitely want to know how we're spending the ESSER funds. We want to know what kind of support services are out there, but include how your child is doing. If your child is okay and you're just writing in to say that I'm concerned about how we're spending the money, that's great. But let us know how your child is doing. We can only help us help you. So if your child is suffering, we have the resources in place. But I just want to commend the teachers and the administration, because my daughter is doing great. A lot of the parents I talked to have said their kids, again, maybe not excellent, but they're doing okay. And I just think that's something that I just wanted to relay to the board and to the 4 people listening in. I'm just kidding.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Here.
Anyone else have anything? Moving on to the acceptance of the minutes. We have the October 4th exec, November 1st exec, and regular public meeting. I present these minutes to be accepted. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep, go ahead.
No, we are not taking them.
Strength.
Yeah, but the FYI said that a request was made to delete, but there was a recap.
No.
So no decisions been made on this. That's what you guys are going to be talking about tonight, right?
Just sure. Which one?
Page
There
12.
were not-
second.
So I think you're talking about the October 4th executive
And she
minutes
said November 1st too.
and November 1st executive
Page
minutes.
12 is November 1st.
You mean those were like two sentences, one sentence each?
Well, there were different things added and there were different things being asked to be deleted. So that's what we shared with everybody to talk this through.
Was that the one where the attorney said he would keep them?
Yeah, if the attorney already said to keep them.
Yeah,
keep
so
them.
then if the attorney wants to keep them,
That's what I thought.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Did, no, say it again?
Yeah, so I think we are all agreeing with Sheila that we keep them.
Keep what was originally asked to be deleted. So,
Yeah.
No,
because-
so- yeah, there was just, I think Ms. Bergen's talking about two sentences, and the attorney agreed that we should keep them.
Correct.
And all the other things were fine. It's just those two sentences of removal was suggested. The attorney said keep them.
okay,
And so we're just going to keep it and the other edits and the other.
okay, so keep, all right, keep the other added and do not delete. Okay.
All in agreement.
So it's all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Other business. Ms. Brogan? Mr. Donnie? Good. Okay, now we'll go to our second comments from the public session. Yep. Yep, there you go. Welcome. Just, you know what, just give it 1 second, yeah, just turn it on. Let's just make sure they have, there's gonna be a timer up here, just so you're aware. Just let them set it up.
Okay, my name
You're all
is
set.
Maggie Wall. I'm a parent of a fifth grader at Ridge Elementary School. I left you a message today, this morning. Was a bit disappointed not to get a phone call back. But I'm here just representing a lot of the fifth grade parents frustrated that 70 plus kids are quarantined at home for 14 days. You know, I know these times are tough and everyone's doing their best, but 14 days right before the holidays is quite a hardship on us families. And, you know, the mental well-being of these children is really at stake and I think getting ignored. So I just wanted a bit more explanation as to how we got to this point. 4 cases in a 2-week period, I guess, puts us at a higher level, but, you know, I would think a little more effort could be done for contact tracing to maybe bring that number of 70 kids down to maybe 20 and spare quite a few families in the process. So I just wanted to know what is being done to.
Exactly what you just said. I mean, based on the New Jersey Department of Health guidelines, including the CDC, once you get to a certain number, 3+ in a certain cohort, that's why it was shut down for the 14 days. It's not that there's insensitivity or anything like that, or nobody's ignoring the mental health of the kids. That's what we have to do. So
Here's a scenario that I thought about today, that if I took my child and I got her tested today for COVID and she tested positive, in 10 days, she could go back to school. And in this scenario that we're in, there were 70 kids. We're not even really sure who was in contact with the positive cases.
correct, and that's the
So it's sort
problem.
of a vague issue.
That's the problem, because the contract tracing has gotten so difficult because there's so many kids that have gone across so many different
Right.
lines and lines are blurred. There's no way to decipher out exactly who was in contact with who.
But it's a 14-day quarantine for a kid who may or may not have even been a contact with these positive
Correct.
cases. Yet, if she tested today and tested positive, in 10 days, she could go back to school. So that's a confirmed positive case in 10 days versus a unconfirmed contact case, 14 days. So that discrepancy just is a bit confusing.
Yeah, we've had this since the very beginning. We're not saying it's perfect with the way the CDC puts it out there, and there is these slight inconsistencies, but the 14 days is, the length of the whole virus. And so that's why they quarantine kids, because it could pop up at that last day.
But if she tested positive today, in 10 days, she could go back to school.
Yeah, I mean,
But in this scenario
Right,
where
so all I can
we
tell
don't
you
even
is-
know if she was.
right, so all I can tell you-
contacted,
yeah.
She's 14.
Right,
So I don't know if everyone's following those numbers,
So,
but
right, for the
it's
past-
baffling. I almost want to go get her tested and hope she's an asymptomatic positive because then she could go back to it, which is just kind of crazy.
Wasn't that changed from 14 days to 10 days?
Not when you have this, when you get 3 or more in this certain area, then you have to go for the 14 days, no questions about it.
So they couldn't even get tested and go back after 7. That's not an
Correct.
option
Correct.
because of the fact that there were.
3+, yep.
So at Ridge, this is very unfortunate planning, in my opinion, that they took 3 classes and they've mixed them together for subjects. And I reached out to the principal with kind of my, questioning on why during a pandemic that would happen. Why would we mix together kids? I know that it's a nice experience. My daughter, for one, please don't complain about that. I love it. It's so fun. I love seeing the other kids, but we don't love where we're at now. And the price we're paying for it is, not good for these kids. So, I can't quite understand when I know that other schools in our district aren't mixing homerooms. They are staying within a cohort, trying to prevent the situation that Ridge is in right now. So, I just wonder, why Ridge hasn't been more proactive. So we could have avoided this right before the holidays. The timing is really difficult. And why more, second to that is why more, effort can't be made to try and figure out who those close contacts were. There's 3 kids and I know they mix classrooms, but okay, so who were they with in those days? Which kids were they sitting close to? I mean, at the high school, if there's a positive case, they mix around. You're not shutting down a whole school. They're mixing around.
But
the whole
those kids,
school.
those kids are vaccinated.
Not everybody,
So
not everybody.
98% of them are.
But so when there's a positive case, do you call the people unvaccinated and tell
Yes,
them to stay
they
home?
they do all the contact tracing. And
But-
when the elementary students are going to be more and more vaccinated, you will see much less or fewer classroom shutdowns. Absolutely.
Unfortunate for us,
Okay.
we're a week shy of that. So, I just would like to know why that contact tracing, a little more effort can't be done to just try and take that number of 70 families down to maybe 20. If a little more effort could be made with the contact tracing to try and lessen that number and lessen this burden.
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up. Thank you. I think I saw a hand raised. Yeah, I thought I saw. Mr. Train, you're on with the board.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So a couple quick comments. First, can everybody hear me? I can't really tell. I can't see.
Yes, sir. Yep, you're on.
Awesome. So I was on the Verizon call, the FiOS, the TV earlier, and it kept pausing and crashing. And I don't know if that happens all the time, but it was sort of impossible to watch, and I had to switch over to the Zoom call where I am now. But anyway, so, I'm on the later start time committee. And the first question I asked at those committee meetings was, what was the purpose of the committee? What was it there to, actually study the issue, or was it just to, try to justify the preconceived notion of changing? And I was assured that no, we are actually studying it, and it's not just, let's figure out how to sell this. And with what I've heard tonight, and I didn't hear it all. I joined late, to be honest. But from what I heard tonight, it seems that we may have lost our way in that regard. I find myself agreeing with Mr. Kaufman that we should slow down and, maybe take another look at some things. I think that the committee, or at the very least, the committee or some other group of people perhaps needs to see the survey and to make sure that the survey is not biased in one way or the other, because as was stated, there's plenty of people on both sides of this and all of them have valid opinions, and it's really not fair to craft some survey that kind of guides you down one path. And I'm not saying that it does, I haven't seen it, but I'm just I'm concerned about that. I'll also add that putting out a survey in the middle of a vacation really has terrible optics, and we should not do that. What else? So the example survey that we saw in the committee meetings was pretty clearly not in favor of starting later. There was really only, the school administration and some of the activist parents that wanted it to happen. The students were against it. The teachers were against it. It was, you could not say that was a positive result. And I'm wondering what would happen if that happened here. I think Mr. Lembo said it a few minutes ago. There are some new articles coming out that don't really support the findings of the older ones. The one that comes to mind is there was one that came out of Seattle where they had 2 high schools, and one high school had positive results and the other high school had negative results. Obviously, all anecdotally, right? But I think the idea that the science is settled or indisputable just isn't right. When I went to school, we were taught that science is never settled or indisputable, and we should keep asking questions. And I think that we should give the residents that ability. The survey shouldn't just have an open-ended session or open-ended question at the end where people can voice a negative opinion. I think there needs to be a clear, option 6 or whatever, which is simply no. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Train. It may be confusing too, though.
Yeah, I can't even hear you guys.
He was asking if there is an option 6.
No, I was saying there was an option in there that said remain how it is. So just,
I don't
so
think
we-
it says that, though. I think it's just the times.
No, I think
It says current schedule.
It says current
Oh,
schedule.
it says
does,
current schedule
yeah.
and then the
It says
times.
remain the same with the same start
Yeah,
time.
but that was in the presentation. Again, I don't know what the survey,
Right.
how it's actually phrased in the
Nobody does.
survey.
Nobody does.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
And there was a slight power outage, or some people did have difficulty when that storm came through and blasted through. It did mess with some of the whatever Verizon and other things.
It probably kept on the YouTube though. So if.
Yeah,
somebody's
no, yeah,
watching-
no, that exactly. People could always go back online and see it. That'll still be a strong signal.
All right. With that, I'm going to close the second comments from the public portion. And then with that, I hereby move this meeting of the Board of Education be adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Actually, well, second, sorry. You get a second first?
Second and I.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Hope the boys are in bed.